All right, day 14. We're working through a very similar agenda, reading a text, multiple choice questions about the text, writing an open response, and doing a journal entry. Today we're learning about Ida B. Wells in the text that we're going to read. She was one of the members of the African American suffragist movement that we read about in our text yesterday. So you may remember that she's a civil rights activist. We'll also learn a little bit about her roles as a teacher and a writer as well. And in this text, one incident that's going to happen with her is she's going to be the victim of some mistreatment on a train. Unfortunately, this mistreatment was common at that time where African Americans and white people had different access to different parts of the train. Very similar to an incident that you may have read about, which happened some years later, which was Rosa Parks standing up for her right to sit anywhere on buses. Ida B. Wells takes a similar stand about her right to sit on trains. So instead of just accepting the system as it was and the injustices that went along with it, she enters into a really long and fierce legal battle with the government over the inequality of the separate seating on these trains. And we learn a lot about sort of her determination as an activist during that legal battle. And yes, she really paved the way for Rosa Parks to make a very similar stand later in terms of bus equality. Again, you're gonna have a couple of footnotes um, that you can follow as you read the text to help you define unfamiliar words. So remember that when you're using the footnotes, there's a tiny little number next to a word. That same tiny little number will be in the notes section at the very bottom of your text. So you scroll down to the bottom, look up what that word means in the notes, and then go right back to that word and continue from where you were reading. Some other words to know for today. Conductor. This is the person who is checking tickets on a train and sort of in charge of letting people on and off the train, controlling who's there, where they're sitting. To sue somebody is to take legal action against them and to say that they have caused damage to you in some way and that they should owe you some sort of compensation for those damages that they've caused you. And then along the same legal lines, the term verdict means the result of a court trial, right? So whatever the judge finally decides or the jury finally decides, whoever is guilty or not guilty, that is the verdict of a case. And again, for words that are unfamiliar without footnotes or that haven't already been defined by me here, you have your strategies. So you can use context clues to make an educated guess about the word. You can break down the word into its smaller parts, or you can use a dictionary. For the multiple choice section, you're going to have a few different question types. First one, we're looking for the central idea of the text, right? So what's the most important thing that the author wants us to learn about the topic? We're also looking for evidence to support our answers that we choose, right? So picking a quote from the text that proves your answer to the prior question was correct. We're also looking at the structure or the organization of the text, thinking about how the author organizes things and why they did that. And the last one is we're looking for connections between characters and their actions. What was the relationship between one character and their actions to another character and their actions? Strategies for multiple choice. Remember to break down the question, annotate, slash the trash, eliminate obviously wrong answers, label distractors, and then choose the best one. New prompt for today for the open response. The author shows us that Ida B. Wells is a hero in many different ways. Your job is going to be to explain how the author shows us that Wells is a hero, right? And you're going to be looking for details from the text to support that. This open response, you're not going to be asked to write a complete multiple paragraph essay. You're just going to go through the planning and outlining process for this. So what that means is you're filling in all the information that you see sort of empty spaces for on this graphic organizer below. The first step for that, and really the most important step, is crafting a thesis statement. Some CFS for writing quality thesis statements. When you're taking an essay prompt and using that to create your thesis statement, you always want to do something that's called turning the question around. So you start out with a question that the prompt is asking you. You then sort of turn that question around into a statement rather than a question. So an example prompt could be, how does online learning differ from in-person learning? In order to turn the question around here, I'm going to eliminate the question words, how does, and then twist the wording of the remaining prompt into a statement rather than question form. So it could look like, online learning differs from in-person learning because blah, blah, blah. Next thing you want to make sure is that your thesis statement answers all parts of the prompt. Oftentimes an essay prompt will have multiple different little questions within it that it's asking you. You want to make sure your thesis statement gives a complete response in your thesis sentence to all parts of that. So for example, if my prompt was, what is your favorite and least favorite vegetable and why? I'm breaking down that prompt and noticing all the different parts that I have to respond to. So the first thing I have to respond to is what my favorite vegetable is. The second thing is why that's my favorite. Third thing I have to respond to is what my least favorite vegetable is. Fourth thing, why that's my least favorite. If I don't answer all four of those pieces in my thesis statement, then I have written an incomplete thesis that left some parts of the prompt unanswered. Lastly, your thesis statement should function as a preview for your body paragraph topic sentences, right? It's basically a roadmap for what the structure of your essay is going to be after the thesis. So in my thesis response to the prompt about vegetables, I could write the best vegetable is broccoli because it looks like a tree, and the worst is lettuce because it tastes like nothing, right? So I see the first piece of my thesis statement here, the best vegetable is broccoli because it looks like a tree. I identify that as basically the roadmap for my body paragraph 1 topic sentence. I can say broccoli is the best vegetable because it resembles a tree. Then I see pretty clearly that the second piece of my thesis statement, the worst is lettuce because it tastes like nothing, could function as the preview of my body paragraph 2 topic sentence, which could be lettuce is the worst vegetable because it has no taste. Right? So I've designed a pretty clear preview or roadmap for my body paragraphs in my single sentence thesis statement. So just like we talked about, once you have your thesis, that's going to give you a great roadmap for picking those 2 topic sentences, one for paragraph 1 and one for paragraph 2, right? And then once you know the claim that you're trying to prove in your first paragraph, you can go and find a really strong piece of evidence in the text that proves that claim is true. Same thing for once you know the claim you're making in paragraph 2, go find one piece of really strong evidence to support that claim. As you're looking for evidence, it's good to open up the PDF of the text that we read today, which is available in Google Classroom on the assignment. 2 journal entry options are listed below for today. Remember that these are more free-form responses, right? There's no particular structure, there's no strict guidelines or expectations of the type of writing you're submitting. Just do your best to write accurately and intelligently and expand your thoughts using one of these prompts.